Welcome back to Jolly Old London, everybody. Welcome back to Fallout London, where today we're going to be taking a look at our first pistol and rifle and shotgun all kind of combined into one weapon. So today we're going to be taking a look at the muskets, and you can actually find these all throughout Fallout London. They're most commonly held by a group of people called the Jacks. These are more like seafaring people, pirate-like raiders pretty much, that have seemingly raided at least a couple of ships or museums or something to get a bunch of old flintlock guns, which seems to be probably the most likely gun that you would come across in London itself. We took a look at some of the London gun laws that you can get, and apparently there's a lot of laws about what guns you can and can't have in London, which is interesting, but black powder guns seem to be some of the ones that anybody could reasonably get, which is kind of funny given the fact that I'm in a state where you can literally buy black powder guns online, have them shipped to your house, and you don't have to tell anybody about that. It's also not restricted to anybody because it's considered an antique weapon or a replica of an antique weapon that's considered outdated. Either way, I guess advantages of being an American. So let's talk about the musket or the short round pistol and the other weapons that we get. You can find these towards the early game of Fallout London. They do actually a lot of damage, but they do come with some fairly obvious downsides. So you're most likely going to be getting this in the pistol form, although rifle forms do exist, and I've never seen anybody actually have the blunderbuss. However, you can make that yourself. Let's go over the stats, and these again are going to be the base stats for the weapon on a character that has all the damage skills maxed out, because that's just what I'm going off of. So for the stats, the pistol does 258 damage per shot. The pistol actually does a ton of damage. Even in the early game, it does a ton of damage compared to other weapons, which is really good because its DPS is very low. The ammo that this uses usually is the lead balls. You can just pick these up off of the Jacks. Usually you get actually quite a lot of them. Usually they're carrying around 20 of them or so. And that actually goes a long way with a weapon like this because it reloads really, really slow. The rate of fire is, funny enough, actually a big old 0 on this. It actually technically doesn't have rate of fire because it does take a very, very long time to actually reload the gun. You can see that in the animations in the background here where it takes forever to actually load this, and you do have to go through the full reload animation. And if at any point you cancel it, you have to start it back up from the start again, which is really annoying, especially if you're getting shot and you end up getting broken limbs. So that can be bad. The range is actually pretty terrible on the pistol at only 17, although I don't think that's quite accurate. You can actually shoot this fairly far and still get good damage. This has 64 accuracy, which is fairly accurate. It's kind of bad since this is a single shot weapon, and if you miss that single shot, it feels just awful. And the pistols weigh 4 weight each, so they're not actually too heavy. The rifles and the shotgun actually don't weigh that much more, depending on how you want to build them. For the general pros of the muskets, they all do really high damage. They all have really good damage, and they usually have pretty long range as well, at least with the rifles if you want to convert that to it. You could argue the blunderbuss and the pistol not as much, but even then they're still not terrible, and they are early game weapons. Since you can get these so early on, they do actually make for pretty good initiation weapons, where you fire this and then you swap to one of your secondaries. However, if you do this with the blunderbuss, it kind of messes it up because it still has to go through the reload animation, even though the blunderbuss doesn't actually have to reload after every shot. At least usually. Sometimes it actually doesn't function that way, and you actually get faster follow-up shots with the blunderbuss than what you would normally have. And I don't know why that is. It just kind of changes. The mod is a little bit weird. For the general cons of these, as you would kind of imagine, a super long reload. It takes a very long time, although the reload animation does look fantastic. I will say that it looks really good, and I love that you actually go through all of the steps to actually reload a black powder muzzle loader like this. That is really cool. It is a single shot as well, regardless of how you want to build this. Even if you get a 2-shot version of this, even with the blunderbuss, it still counts as 2 shots, or it still counts as a single shot when you pull the trigger. If you're using it with the blunderbuss, it actually takes up 2 of the items. The blunderbuss is unique in that it doesn't use the same ammo. It actually counts as the junk jet or the rocket launcher from the other Fallout games, where you can just load any sort of miscellaneous stuff into it, which I think makes it kind of better. And the slow rate of fire is really bad if you need to be doing quick follow-up shots. Generally, the way I'd recommend you use this is either initiate with the rifle or the pistol by firing it at something at a distance. If enemies still don't see you, or you have a very long distance, you could try to reload it and fire it again. Otherwise, probably fire it once, hit something, swap off to something else, and then shoot whatever you need. You could even potentially take multiple of these pistols. Just make sure that they are different from one another, because otherwise the reload animation can still get kind of messed up. So have like a short rifle, a long rifle, and a pistol, and then swap to, the pistol, the rifle, the other rifle, and then swap on to something else. That way you could fire all three, get really high damage, and then you would kind of cheat out the slow reload and the rate of fire that you do have with it. For an overall rating for the pistol, I'd probably say the pistol's like a D tier. It's just not really that great, and you want to swap it off to something else. It does hit really hard, so by the time you are actually getting in the early game, I would recommend that you try it out. It's also just a fantastically modeled weapon, like pretty much all of them in Fallout London, so that's really cool, but not really the best. Let's go over the different mods that you can put on these, because this one actually just changes the way the weapon is entirely. It doesn't actually change like receiver, barrel, sights, or anything like that. You don't really get those options with the musket. So you can either have the pistol, which is arguably the weakest option, but if you want to sell them, then that's probably the best just because they're going to be the most lightweight. You have the rifle, which does make it so you have a much longer range, and that's usually the one I go with because I kind of like to look at that one the best. So that one's pretty nice. You also have the long rifle, which is an extremely long rifle. That gives you the longest range, besides the laser musket version of this. There is a laser musket in this too, but it doesn't work the same way it does in Fallout 4 where you have to crank it up. It still is a single shot where you do have to reload it. It just has a bunch of batteries along the side of it. And that one actually has the longest range out of any of them, but that one takes the most materials to actually make. Then you also have the blunderbuss and the stockless version of it. The stockless version actually doesn't really change anything besides it making it a little bit more lightweight. I don't really like the way that it looks though, because you can't cut the barrel down too. If you could chop the barrel down, I think I'd like it a lot more. That way it looks proportionally good. For the rifle, I'd probably rate that one a bit higher. The rifles I'd probably say are like a C tier because they do offer you longer range and they do offer you a better initiation than something like the pistol. It's still not great because if things rush you, that can be really bad. And in Fallout London, there is generally a lot more enemies than there is in Fallout 4. So you're going to be rushed by stuff, and just constantly trying to reload this while melee enemies are on top of you is kind of a nightmare. For the blunderbuss though, I'd actually put that one a whole lot higher. I'd actually put that one all the way up into A tier because the blunderbuss lets you just load any sort of junk into the gun. And that makes it way, way more useful because Fallout London, ammo is not the most common thing. They did make it so ammo is much more rare in London, at least early on, than it is in any of the other Fallout games that I can really think of. So having something that can just load in junk works to your advantage, especially early on, especially if you start picking up a whole lot of the lightweight junk, like you just pick up steel off of something. You can load it into the gun and just fire this and have actually a really powerful indoor weapon or really powerful close range weapon, so long as you're, once again, okay with the very long reload. And this one, you can't really fire and then swap off to another weapon, because once you fire it, it will automatically count as going into the reload animation, and even if you swap to another gun, it won't let you fire most of the time. Sometimes it does. Most of the time it won't let you fire until you actually go out of it. So yeah, blunderbuss I'd probably say is A tier just because of how useful it is early on. I ended up getting a 2-shot one of these, which was fantastic for my first run of Fallout London. Blunderbuss did a ton of damage and was super fun to use. It was like pretty much my go-to early and mid-game weapon. It let me hoard a whole bunch of ammo, which was fantastic for the mid and late game. So yeah, these are actually really cool weapons that they added in Fallout London. I think they fit really well. I think they would have fit really well into Fallout 4 as well. Unfortunately, we didn't get that even with all of the colonial stuff that was there. Tell me your thoughts on the muskets and blunderbuss and the pistol and all that. How do you like them? And what weapon would you like to see next covered in Fallout London? We've got a ton of them to go over. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.